Hello, and welcome to another edition of Good Deeds. It's brought to you by Just Serve, which is a great way to connect with organizations here in the Sacramento area that are making a difference in people's lives and making this a better community. If you're looking for an organization to connect with so you can volunteer, donate your time, or donate resources to help, justserve.org is a great place to start. Today, I am talking with Marilyn Koenig. She is from Friends for Survival. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in our community, and thank you for being on Good Deeds.
Oh, I'm grateful and honored that we can share our services in our community with you and
Well,
and and your listening audience.
yes, well, it's a very important service that you are providing. I think people don't realize how difficult the journey through grief is, and it can affect so many areas of your life. It can affect your health, your mental health, your relationships, your job. What inspired you to start this service to help people that are walking through grief?
Well, I'm the executive of Friends for Survival. Purposefully, the word suicide is not in the name, but we are a free service bereavement support program after a suicide death. It's very, very specific. Unfortunately, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of us. Um, and back in the 70s, I was just a busy mom with 7 children, had no plans to do anything like this until my son, Stephen, at age 18, he was just 2 months before graduation of Christian Brothers High School, and he died by suicide. And we were totally blindsided. We had no idea that he was struggling. Um, the only way we even know he was struggling is he left a note and it said that this is nobody's fault. I just don't have a future. And that was not the reality of his life at all. He was an A student. He was registered to go to Sac State. He was going to be a criminologist. He had bought a car. He had a job. He was a very productive young person. And he never would drink or smoke or anything. He thought that was foolishness. He just wanted to get A pluses. So that is not an uncommon profile, by the way.
Yeah.
It isn't. Many times, many of us have been totally blindsided because they haven't shared with us what's going on in their heads and what's happening with them and their thoughts and in their actions and so on. They cover everything up, and especially in the 70s when my son died, was 1977. Nobody talked about depression. You didn't hear about mental health. You didn't hear about suicide on media or anywhere. I did not know that teenagers killed themselves. I did not know that, had no exposure to that. So if you were a young person and you were in school and nobody ever mentioned it anywhere in passing anywhere, I mean, not in the newspapers, not on TV, no, I mean, just absolutely. And you were feeling depressed and you were feeling hopeless and desperate, you probably wouldn't bring it up and share, I think, because you'd think something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was happening with him.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
now, how are you helping people that have been affected by this tragic situation in their lives?
Well, in 1982, I met another mother who had lost her teenage son. We met at Compassionate Friends, which was a grief support meeting that was new in our community at that time. And her son had also died by suicide when he was 17, a couple of years prior to that. And we sat and talked together and then thought, and I said to her, I said, but we could come here if you lost a child, but where would you go if you lost a spouse or grandparent or sibling or whatever? And so we kind of talked about that and thought maybe there's a need for a separate group just to deal with the aftermath of a suicide death. And so we did our due diligence and talked to some professors and funeral directors and the leadership and the crisis lines in our area, Yolo County and Sacramento, and everybody said, go for it. They said, we'll support you.
Mm.
So we had a little information meeting with a little bit of PR, and 8 people showed up, and 6 of us said we are going to work on this project and we're going to start. So my only background was being like the den mother and the Girl Scout leader, and I thought, well, I do a Girl Scout troop, once a week. I could do a meeting once a month. So we had about 12 people that showed up at the first meeting that we had, which was a few months later, because we sat and planned out what we were going to do, where we were going to have a meeting, and kind of just had a team. So since that time, we've always been a team organization. We were totally volunteer for 28 years. I took all the phone calls, but we had a whole team of board members and so on. We got very, very organized in the very beginning. And we just didn't, I had no idea it was going to get this big, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
So now it's 40 years later since that first meeting. This year is our 40th anniversary.
Wow.
So we are absolutely amazed. We've kept good documentation of every meeting we've ever had. So we have sent out, we do a monthly newsletter, and in 40 years, we have sent out 1.3 million newsletters across this country. So we get people calling us from all over the world, or contacting us mostly by email with their out of our area. And we have Zoom meetings so that they can attend our Zoom meetings. So we have 6 Zoom meetings a month, and we get people from all over the world that come to those meetings.
Wow.
They're not the majority. The majority of them are in the United States, but most people live in places that don't have any other services. There's nothing else in their community where they can go and just freely share their struggle and the trauma that they have experienced since the death of their loved one. So we welcome anybody and everybody that has been affected by a suicide death of another. That's our description of a survivor. So, and the reason suicide is not in our name is because we knew people wouldn't want to see that word on their mail.
Mm.
So that's why it's called Friends for Survival, and that's what we do is we try to build a bond and be a friend for as long as they need us.
Yeah.
And we do have people on our mailing list for over 20 years. It's
Yeah.
amazing, quite a number of them actually. And they're still
Well, just
supporting us. They're still supporting us. So we are nonprofit. We do get funding from Sacramento County, from the Cal Mesa uh, funding, Mental Health Services Act, and donor support. And we part of United Way and all of those kinds of things. Uh,
yeah.
but mainly we are really supported by the people that we serve.
Yeah. Well, just knowing that you're not alone and that there's other people that understand and can have been there, that helps a lot. And just having a place to where you can let those feelings out and share with an understanding, empathetic person, that's huge as well. And that's part of what you're providing in these meetings. What are some of the specific areas of support that you offer to someone who has lost someone to this?
Well, our format is that we provide a variety of services, and then it's up to you to decide what one works best for you. Some people want to come to an in-person meeting. Some people would rather come to a Zoom type meeting. We also have phone support. We also have a mentoring program. If you're really, really isolated, we do have a particular uh, program where you can have a phone call from the same person every week, and it'll just kind of become your buddy. A sharing buddy is going to help you share that grief journey with them. So we have that particular program. We have a newsletter, like right now is going out to over 6,000 families. You can get that by email, or you can get it in hard copy. We have all kinds of handouts and on particular topics that are unique, not necessarily unique. They're unique to grief. Some of them are more unique to grief after suicide. Not all of them. Some of them are just really good grief handouts on information. Our website is friendsforsurvival.org. And just like it sounds, friendsforsurvival.org. We are based here in Sacramento. That's where we started. And if you go to our website, you can sign up for our newsletter and for information. We will then send you a packet, a welcome packet. So you will get a whole packet of information from us, including our brochures, booklets like Help a Grief After Suicide, short bibliography of good books that we highly recommend. There's also a handout in there about taking care of your health physically and how trauma affects your physical health. And it's important that you really take that seriously. And then if you go to our website, you're going to see a very, very long annotated list of books, depending on what your loss is. If you lost a spouse or you lost a sibling, we have a section on just for about men and grief, about how men grieve, written by men. So we have particular segments on that bibliography, so you can find a book and this annotated, that means that there's a short description of what that book is about.
Wow.
So you'll know what kind of a book you're getting, not just a topic and an author.
Yeah, lots of resources on your website, friendsforsurvival.org. Do you have a need for volunteers, or how can we as the community best support this work that you're doing?
Well, everyone that's involved in our community, actively involved as a volunteer, staff, phone support, or whatever, are people that have actually been affected by a suicide death of another person. We don't have volunteers that haven't been affected, but we would really appreciate you're considering donating to us financially. We could use help from everyone because the services are free, but they're not free to us. We have to pay rent. We do have a staff. We have three very part-time staff members is all. Well, actually four. That includes me. So we only have 4 people working part-time that do all this service. So referral, and let people know, be aware that we are available. We also have a special brochure for first responders that we would appreciate you contacting us. They're free, and it's something that the first responders or funeral directors or any nursing and people, emergency room and so on, could give out to a family when there's been a suicide death. And it's like, okay, you're so traumatized, your brain is frozen, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I tell what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I mean, really, we can't think at a time like that.
Yeah, it's true.
We are really just numb and frozen. And so this little booklet will give you a checklist. It'll tell you a little bit about suicide and grief. And suicide isn't really what most people consider. I should say, as a community, our idea of suicide is probably not realistic in what we think. And in fact, it wasn't for me. I thought it was homeless people and didn't have any family, and that's not really true. It's anybody or everybody can be at risk depending on situations, depending on your own mental health. But it's an act of desperation. Suicide has nothing to do with death. These people did not want to die. They needed to end their pain or their situation that they have gotten to the point where it's unbearable. And any one of us could end up in that situation. We don't know. Something can happen of no fault of our own, no fault of our own at all. And we can become vulnerable to this whole issue of suicide. So the people that call us, all those people that have called us over the last 40 years, which has been over 14,000 families have called us, they were loving families. These people that died were loved and cared for and cherished. And yet they still found themselves feeling hopeless and desperate and felt like their only way to end the physical, psychological pain that they were in is to end their life.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is really sad because such loving people. And we have memorial quilts. And so that's another one of our programs, and it's very helpful. We use the memorial quilts when we go out in public. So we have a whole program. We provide you with the materials and instructions and everything. So we have 6 memorial quilts. And it does help the general public and even the professionals. If you have to look at a quilt and look at all those smiling faces and realize these smiling faces that died by suicide had a life before they died. And so we try to help people to get to the point where the life that that person had becomes a bigger part of their life than how they died.
Yes.
Because how they died is not who they were.
Yes. Well, it's
So,
a very, very important work that you're doing, and you're helping so many, not just here in the Sacramento area, but it sounds like around the world. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. We've got the website up on the bottom of the screen so folks can contact you if they want to donate or want to find out more about your services. And just thank you again for the work that you're doing and for being on Good Deeds.
yes. And can you also add our phone number?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Consider it done.
Okay. Thank you so much for asking me to come and share with you and share with our community. It's been a delight. And we're always looking for opportunities to share and to let people know that you don't have to be grieving this all by yourself. There are other people that can help you and hold your hand while you cry. And you don't have to say anything. You can just hold our hand while we cry. And that's the best thing you can do for us, actually.
Yeah.
Because eventually the tears become less and less and less. But it's a long, long journey. This is not a short journey.
Well,
And
thank you for that reminder, and thank you for being that help for folks that need it.
well, thank you for inviting me, Sheryl. I really appreciate that.